We just got a bombshell news headline out of nowhere. What is going on, guys? What is going on, 27 Squad? Welcome back into another video. We have a crazy developing story. I hope to see that there's an update on this tomorrow, but I heard this and it was all over Twitter and I couldn't make a video until now. But before we start, make sure you guys check out Sleeper for a 100% match up to $100 on your deposit on Sleeper if you use the promo code 27Squad. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into this crazy freaking video.
And I've now gotten this from multiple people I trust, which is why I'm going to come here with it. The Giants were firing Brian Daboll off the plane after the collapse in Denver.
Really?
He was fired.
Fired?
Ownership got together, cooler heads prevailed, and they decided not to fire Brian Daboll off the plane in Denver. But in the immediacy of that collapse, the decision to throw on 3rd and 5, like Tiki had crushed after that game, enough apparently was enough from people of importance with the Giants that he was fired off the plane in Denver, and cooler heads have prevailed, which has now led to stories about the split ticket. Brian Daboll's as good as gone and was basically gone 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
If not for somebody stepping up within ownership and calming that down.
Now, you don't know the specific names because I
don't.
can just surmise myself.
I will tell you that the person making the decision to fire him was not Joe Schoen in that moment, but you could surmise from there.
It's ownership.
Ownership.
Now, according to Sean Marash of WFAN and Talking Giants, he says that he's heard around the grapevine that Brian Daboll was fired off the plane of that Denver Broncos game. Now, whether or not the actual words, hey, Brian Daboll, you are fired, whether or not those words actually came out of John Mara's mouth is one thing. It's another thing if John Mara was just heated after the game and said, I'm going to fire this motherfreaker. He's good as gone when we get back to Jersey. But either way, that is really telling about what we're probably going to see at the end of the season. Now, there were already some talks about, hey, what's going on? We're seeing on the back of the New York Post or New York Daily News or one of those newspapers that it was on the back page, so it was trying to be, subliminally put in there, not on the front page news, but that there was going to be a split ticket between Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. One was staying, one was going, and the one that was leaving was going to be Brian Daboll, which means that Joe Schoen would remain as head coach. And it makes no sense to me at all. It makes absolutely no sense to me at all that Joe Schoen would be kept over Brian Daboll when I feel like if there's one that needs to be fired, I would fire both, don't get me wrong, but if there's one that needs to be fired over another, it's definitely Joe Schoen. You can argue about roster management and you can argue how they're performing through the injuries. That's on coaching. But the fact that a couple of guys get injured, a couple of guys out the starting lineup get injured, and automatically this is one of the worst rosters in the NFL is extremely telling to what Joe Schoen does as far as philosophy of his team building. He puts out a bunch of big names as far as the starters go and really does nothing as far as depth. Just think about why the Giants were even in that position to begin with. We all know Malik Neighbors went down. That was unfortunate. And then we had another unfortunate injury where Darius Slayton wasn't able to go in that game either. So, you had a weird semblance of wide receivers at your disposal. But look at the depth that we had at wide receiver. Why on earth do we have a situation where we're at the last minutes of the game and your best receivers out there, the guys that are running your routes, is a 5'8" Wan'Dale Robinson who's good but should not be a number one target. You have a practice squad player who you just brought up in Lil Jordan Humphrey, who was mainly used as a blocker, and then you have Jalen Hyatt, who only has 3 catches on the season, and you also had Bo Collins, who Jackson Dart was forced to throw to in the final couple minutes of the game. I know a lot of people are mad about the 3rd and 5 that Brian Daboll agreed to throw the ball on 3rd and 5, but plenty of teams do that. I think that's really overblown out of proportion. Plenty of teams, when they're trying to run out the clock, they'll sometimes throw a pass to keep the defense honest a little bit to lighten up that box. But of course, there's just no possibility of them actually completing the first down because look who they had at their disposal. Here's the thing, guys. I understand Brian Daboll being on the hot seat. I completely understand that, and if he gets fired tomorrow, I would understand. But for the life of me, I just cannot fathom why Joe Schoen is safe. Why there's no talk about Joe Schoen being fired as well. It makes no sense to me at all. You could argue about this draft class that he just put out there. Jackson Dart, Abdul Carter, Cam Scatterboo, Marcus Bowe, who's good depth. The list goes on and on. It was a good draft. And a lot of people are going to say what headlines that draft is, of course, Jackson Dart. But need I remind you guys, the one who was really championing for Jackson Dart, the one who was banging the table for Dart, was Brian Daboll. I want to make it clear that Joe Schoen made it very clear that it was his decision to draft Jackson Dart.
Mention if you can, but Pittsburgh's a quarterback needy team, but they're looking to move back too. So nobody's gonna remember a third-round pick if you're right. So you guys are convicted in him. You believe in him. We did the process. He checked all the boxes. Let's fucking roll the dice.
I'm pretty sure this was a way to save Joe Schoen's ass, to say if Jackson Dart doesn't work out, then it's on Brian Daboll. But even so, Jackson Dart is working out, and now Joe Schoen is reaping the benefits of that because he technically did draft him because he's the GM. It wasn't his guy. It was Brian Daboll's guy. So for Joe Schoen to keep his job because he may have found his franchise quarterback is crazy, because Brian Daboll had the idea, not Joe Schoen. And also, I want to bring you guys to this awesome tweet. Shout out to Monty on Twitter. He says, when they try to use Jackson Dart as a reason for keeping Joe Schoen, just remember how effing lucky this man got to land Dart. Jackson Dart was Daboll's quarterback, as I've mentioned, and he wanted him at 3. Joe Schoen instead decided to risk losing that quarterback and trade back up for him. In the process of that, his son posted Jackson Dart's highlights the night before the draft. Every national reporter learned that we wanted Dart. Every beat reporter learned that we wanted Dart, and multiple reports came out about us working the phones to come back up. If you're going to try this, you need to make sure nothing gets out, and completely failed at that. They are just lucky no one else simply wanted Dart enough to beat us to him. And that is completely true. We all know the night before the draft, when Carson Shane posted Jackson Dart, his highlights, the night before the draft, it went viral. It broke Twitter, and it even was talked about in national NFL media. Everyone and their mom at least knew the Giants were interested in Jackson Dart, so much so we got reports that the Giants were going to trade up for Jackson Dart, and that's what we all assumed. Even the night before the draft, I predicted that the Giants were going to do this. So if the fans knew it and the media knew it, then other teams knew it. The Giants were very lucky to get Jackson Dart. Moving on to what life would be like after Brian Daboll. Listen, as far as getting a coach in here, I don't know what's going on with either Mike Tomlin. I don't think he's going anywhere. But John Harbaugh, we're going to see what happens with his Ravens season. But a lot of fans have been sick of him as it is. Don't know what it's like inside that front office for the Baltimore. But if John Harbaugh winds up being fired from the Ravens, I would love for him to come along here and try to help the Giants out and try to build a roster to win. But as far as a coach I would want, I don't know particular names yet. Of course, there is Clint Kubiak is the hottest name right now, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, amongst others. But I just want someone that's going to help Jackson Dart's development. It doesn't need to be an offensive-minded head coach, but I would prefer that. But if it isn't, make sure you guys are prioritizing the quarterback's development, and Jackson Dart is who you need to focus on more than anything. So, again, I don't know how I would feel about Joe Schoen remaining at GM. Again, people keep mentioning that draft, but go look at his other drafts. Go look at the 2023 draft. It looked worse than a Dave Gettleman draft. So that being said, leave your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. What do you guys think about the situation? Brian Daboll basically being fired and not being fired is crazy to hear. I don't know how true it is. I don't know if I trust Sean Marash, but whatever. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Remember to check out Sleeper. We'll see you guys in the next video.